Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's story comes straight from the heart of Europe, where Ukraine has once again managed to stun the world. In a daring operation that lasted barely 16 minutes, just 2 Ukrainian jets inflicted catastrophic damage on Moscow's most protected military and industrial zone, an estimated $620 million in losses. What makes this even more unbelievable is the precision, timing, and confidence behind such an audacious strike deep inside Russia's capital. While the Kremlin scrambled to understand what went wrong, the world stood in shock, witnessing a moment that may redefine the very nature of modern warfare. It all began in the early hours before dawn. The city of Moscow was silent, blanketed by cold mist, unaware that 2 Ukrainian fighter jets were already cutting through the airspace undetected. They weren't the latest Western stealth fighters, nor were they part of a massive air raid. Instead, these were modified Soviet-era aircraft, refitted by Ukrainian engineers with advanced targeting systems, Western guidance pods, and radar, evading technology cobbled together under intense secrecy. Their mission to strike critical Russian command and industrial centers that fed Moscow's ongoing war machine. In less than half an hour, explosions would ripple across the skyline, shaking the confidence of a nation that once boasted the world's most advanced air defense network. The jets flew low, hugging the terrain and using electronic countermeasures to jam radar signals. Russia's vaunted S-400 defense systems, capable of detecting even stealth aircraft, were silent until it was too late. Ukrainian pilots, trained under NATO supervision in precision strike techniques, executed their flight path with surgical accuracy. Their target selection was no accident. Intelligence had confirmed that key facilities in the Moscow region were producing advanced drone guidance systems, electronic warfare modules, and critical missile components destined for the front lines in Ukraine. Destroying them wouldn't just be symbolic, it would deal a real, measurable blow to Russia's war capacity. Inside Moscow, the first explosion shattered the stillness at 4:37 a.m. A fireball erupted over the industrial complex in Kyiv, lighting up the horizon for miles. Moments later, a second blast rocked a nearby logistics hub tied to Russia's defense ministry, followed by secondary explosions as fuel and munitions ignited. Within minutes, smoke plumes rose like dark towers above the city. Sirens wailed. Social media channels flooded with videos from terrified residents, capturing the moment Moscow realized it was under attack from the very enemy it thought it had contained hundreds of miles away. The interior of the Ukrainian command center during this moment was a mixture of calm and tension. Officers monitored live satellite feeds as glowing red dots blinked across the digital map. Communications were terse, professional, each second critical. As the final coordinates confirmed target destruction, the room erupted in quiet satisfaction. The operation was over before Russian radar could even register what had happened. The 2 jets, having delivered their payload, turned back sharply and exited Russian airspace through Prip, land escape routes flying nap of the Earth to avoid interception. For all Moscow's boasts about its aerial superiority, it had just been humiliated by 2 aircraft that shouldn't have even been able to reach its borders. Russia's response was immediate and chaotic. Air defense systems across western Russia went into full alert, firing blindly at what radar operators thought were additional incoming threats. Moscow's mayor called for residents to remain calm, while state television downplayed the attack as a drone incident. But satellite images released hours later told a different story. Vast sections of industrial land lay in ruins, with several buildings reduced to rubble and massive craters marking precision impacts. Analysts estimated the damage at more than $600 million, an extraordinary figure for an operation carried out by just 2 jets. Western defense experts described it as one of the most successful deep strike missions in modern history. International reactions came swiftly. European leaders privately marveled at the scale of Ukraine's achievement, while publicly urging restraint to prevent escalation. The Pentagon confirmed it had not been involved, but acknowledged that Ukraine had grown increasingly sophisticated in its long-range precision warfare. For Ukraine, this strike was not merely a message. It was a demonstration of capability, proof that even Moscow was no longer untouchable. The symbolism was powerful. For the first time since the war began, Russia's capital had been hit directly by manned aircraft, an act once considered impossible. What made the strike so effective wasn't just the aircraft or the pilots. It was Ukraine's evolving military intelligence and engineering ingenuity. Over the past 2 years, Ukrainian technicians had reverse engineered everything from missiles to drones, integrating Western components into Soviet hardware. They had built radar, masking devices, upgraded navigation systems, and learned to coordinate complex multi-layered operations. These 2 jets represented the culmination of that evolution, old airframes, new brains. Each missile launched was pre-programmed to home in on electronic signatures, ensuring pinpoint accuracy even in heavily jammed environments. Russian media scrambled to control the narrative, claiming that their defenses had intercepted most of the missiles and that the damage was minor. Yet, images circulating online painted a grim reality. Entire factory complexes burning uncontrollably, emergency crews overwhelmed, and plumes of thick black smoke visible even from central Moscow. Civilians in nearby districts described windows shattering and walls trembling. Panic spread briefly before Russian authorities restricted internet access in affected areas to suppress videos and independent reporting. But it was too late. The footage had already reached global audiences, undermining the Kremlin's credibility once again. In the hours following the attack, speculation grew about how Ukraine had managed to evade Russia's dense radar grid. Military analysts suggested that Ukraine may have used advanced decoys, possibly Western-supplied electronic drones, to confuse radar operators. Some even theorized the involvement of space-based jamming support from friendly nations. Whatever the case, the fact remained that 2 relatively small jets had penetrated the most guarded airspace in Eastern Europe and emerged unscathed. It was a masterclass in asymmetrical warfare, showing that determination and intelligence could overcome even overwhelming technological superiority. Back in Ukraine, morale soared. Social media platforms buzzed with pride and disbelief as citizens celebrated what they saw as justice served. The strike wasn't about revenge. It was about proving capability and resilience. The message was clear. Ukraine could strike back. Anytime, anywhere. Russian officials, meanwhile, were furious. Military leaders convened emergency meetings to assess the vulnerabilities exposed by the raid. There were reports of generals being reprimanded and air defense units being relocated around key infrastructure points. The Kremlin vowed retaliatory measures, but none could hide the embarrassment of being hit so effectively, so suddenly, and by so little. As news of the incident spread, international stock markets briefly reacted. Defense contractors' shares rose, while Russian energy firms saw declines amid fears of further instability. Analysts noted that the psychological damage to Russia might outweigh the physical destruction. For years, the Kremlin had maintained an image of invulnerability, of a fortress Moscow that could repel any threat. That illusion was now broken. The world had witnessed cracks in Russia's armor, and no amount of propaganda could fully repair them. Reports later revealed that the operation had been codenamed Silent Thunder. Planning had begun months earlier, involving a combination of human intelligence, satellite data, and insider information on Russian logistics routes. Ukrainian engineers modified the aircraft to carry precision, guided munitions, while pilots trained in simulated missions using Western-provided systems. Every contingency was rehearsed, every escape route calculated. The entire operation was executed with almost cinematic precision. The success of Silent Thunder will likely be studied in military academies for years as a case study in modern strategic surprise. Meanwhile, across the Black Sea, the Crimea Bridge, the symbol of Russia's annexation of Crimea, was once again under threat. Within days of the Moscow strike, explosions echoed near the bridge, forcing Russian authorities to halt traffic. Ukrainian sources hinted that the attacks were linked, designed to stretch Russia's defenses thin and expose their inability to protect critical supply routes. The bridge, already repaired multiple times after previous strikes, became a recurring nightmare for Moscow, a physical reminder that no structure, no matter how heavily guarded, was beyond reach. This dual assault, one on Moscow's heart and another on Crimea's lifeline, painted a grim picture for Russia's strategic planners. If 2 jets and a few drones could cause hundreds of millions in losses, what could Ukraine do with a fully modernized arsenal? The implications went far beyond one operation. It signaled a new phase of the war, one where Ukraine could dictate tempo and geography, forcing Russia to defend, react, and scramble instead of attack with confidence. The psychological reversal was complete. For the first time, Russia was the one looking over its shoulder. In the following days, satellite images showed intensified Russian fortifications around Moscow and the bridge. Anti-aircraft units were repositioned, and civilian airports were placed under tighter control. Yet, these actions revealed desperation more than strength. Analysts pointed out that defending everywhere at once was impossible. Ukraine's growing ability to choose its targets freely meant that Russia would have to commit massive resources just to maintain a fragile sense of security. It was a war of nerves as much as a war of weapons. As the dust settled, questions arose about what Ukraine would target next. Would there be another deep strike? Would Moscow face more surprises? Ukrainian officials remained silent, maintaining their strategic ambiguity. Every unexplained explosion inside Russia now carried a new tension. The fear of the unknown had become one of Ukraine's most powerful tools. It was no longer just about tanks and missiles. It was about psychology, timing, and the element of shock. For ordinary Russians, the attack was a wake-up call. For months, the war had been something distant, something happening on television screens far from Moscow's streets. But the roar of explosions and the sight of fires on the horizon brought the war home. Many began to question the government's assurances that Russia's defenses were impenetrable. For Ukraine, that alone was a victory of perception, a reminder that power is as much about belief as it is about firepower. In the end, the strike that lasted just 16 minutes reshaped an entire narrative. 2 Ukrainian jets, operating against impossible odds, had accomplished what many thought unthinkable, hitting Moscow and getting away with it. The cost, $620 million in damage, was staggering, but the message it sent was priceless. It proved that no fortress is invincible, no empire untouchable, and no aggressor immune from consequences. It showed that innovation, courage, and precision can overcome even the mightiest defenses. As night falls over both nations, the echoes of that 16-minute strike continue to reverberate across the geopolitical landscape. Moscow rebuilds, its pride bruised, while Ukraine stands defiant, its confidence renewed. The world watches, knowing that this was not just another headline. It was a glimpse into the future of warfare, where speed, intelligence, and daring redefine victory itself.